ナックルダスター
The My Hero Academia Vigilantes anime has finally released its first episode titled I'm Here, a clear reference to All Might's iconic catchphrase. Of course, we are going to be breaking down the episode as well as the entire season each week, so be sure to Detroit smash that like button and subscribe to the Kidoroki channel with notifications on so that you don't miss any My Hero Academia Vigilantes content and episode breakdowns. The episode begins with Koichi going over the advent of the Extraordinary, which a full timeline breakdown of the advent of the Extraordinary is up on the channel, so be sure to check that out after this video. But basically, after the manifestation of quirks, everyone being special became the new normal, and with that, so did heroes, with there being two different types of heroes. The pro heroes being chosen ones authorized by the government to use their powers to serve society, and a more illegal sort of hero who takes action without being chosen by the law to do so, questioning what brand of justice do these heroes follow, and if they deserve to be called heroes in the first place. These heroes being vigilantes. As a fun addition to the anime, we hear Koichi stating that this is the story of vigilantes trying to become real heroes before Izuku Midoriya ever went to UA High School, letting us know that this is a prequel to My Hero Academia. After the banger opening done by Kochi no Kento called Keka Orai, we are hit with a villain causing havoc. All Might shows up, defeating the rampaging villain with a Detroit smash, and among the crowd of fans we see Koichi and All Might taking down the villain. Koichi being our main protagonist, who is a 19-year-old freshman college student who is a little bit older than your typical shonen protagonist. Oddly enough, the anime does remove a lot of Koichi's inner thoughts when seeing All Might and describing how great heroes are and how he isn't special. Now, with Vigilantes being a prequel to My Hero Academia, of course All Might still has the power of One for All, but at this point in the timeline, the first fight between him and All for One has already occurred, making Vigilantes take place within that 5-year time gap between All Might versus All for One and All Might offering Deku One for All. Continuing on, Koichi realizes he's late for work for his part-time job at a convenience store and proceeds to run, which causes him to bump into Soga. Here, the anime cut out a bunch of scenes, as originally when he realizes he's late for work, he uses his mobility quirk and is then stopped by a cop because he isn't licensed to use his quirk in public, which causes him to be extra late, leading him to run into Soga. As Koichi bumps into a local group of thugs led by Soga, who claims that Koichi made him spill his drink, he forces Koichi to bow down and apologize. Koichi, knowing Soga would be the type to kick him while he's down, uses his quote-unquote ultimate move, Kowtow Evasion, where he avoids Soga's kick by sliding backwards, which leads to Soga chasing down Koichi. Again, the anime removes a lot of Koichi's inner thoughts here, as in the anime, he doesn't analyze the type of person Soga is and never announces his ultimate move when escaping. After this, Koichi finally uses his mobility type quirk, Slide and Glide, where in order for his quirk to activate, he has to make 3 points of contact with any given surface. For the anime, Present Mic is once again back to announce who characters are. Koichi is made fun of by citizens who think he looks like a roach when using his quirk. When Koichi loses Soga, he finds himself at a street performance done by the self-styled freelance idol Popstep. Popstep's quirk Leap is also a mobility type quirk that lets her jump, bounce, and leap very high. Just like Koichi, she also uses her quirk illegally to do these surprise street performances. For a slight change in design to her manga counterpart, Popstep's costume has been censored for the anime. It's really not a big deal, but the manga's version of Popstep's costume is extremely revealing when it comes to the bottom half of her body. In the anime, her costume was revised to include black stockings to cover Pop's legs, and the skirt on her costume is longer and positioned differently to cover her backside. While her manga costume acted as a statement on pop stars wanting to look a certain way to attract attention, for the most part, this change to the anime is overall better and still able to keep her design and style close to her manga counterpart and keeping that pop idol statement alive. The anime also gives Popstep an actual original song to sing, and she's given a bunch of new scenes of her performing the song. Even Ichimoku makes a cameo appearance in the crowd when she performs, who will become a more prominent character in the future. And I'm not gonna lie, the song might have been a banger. Koichi, on the other hand, thinks her songs suck, but find her oddly fascinating because her quirk basically lets her fly, making him envious of her abilities. For another change done to the anime, Koichi just ups and leaves as he realizes he's cutting it close with being late, and Pop notices him sliding away. In the manga, the performance is cut short as Koichi warns Popstep of the police coming. The crowd cheers and praises Pop while Koichi is about to slide away to his job and is called gross when in position to slide away. And for me, this change kind of sucks. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of scenes with Koichi's inner thoughts were cut, and a lot of them had to do with him really undermining himself while praising heroes and those with amazing quirks, which sets up what happens later with his heroic moment a lot more impactful. And with these moments being taken away, especially a tiny moment like him being called gross while next to a bunch of people praising someone who is also using their quirk in public just like him, does take a lot away from me, as these moments heavily tied into one of the overall themes of My Hero Academia, where society will view other people differently depending on how flashy their quirks are, and everyone not being born equal. Similar to how Shinso is viewed as having a villainous type quirk, and Bakugo being praised on his explosion quirk and how he would make a great hero. This theme carries over nicely in Vigilantes, as someone like Popstep is looked up to for her quirk, while Koichi is looked down on for his quirk. And this element from the manga is unfortunately taken away by not having these tiny moments in it. With that mini rant out of the way, as Koichi slides away, he states that people admire what they look up at, and when they look down at something, the opposite tends to happen. He then slips on a puddle of water, claiming that life isn't fair, perfectly paralleling Deku in the beginning of My Hero Academia. Continuing his bad luck, he still arrives late for work. Soga and the gang walk into the store and are surprised to see Koichi working behind the counter. Soga takes Koichi out back, showing off his spike quirk and how bad it would hurt if he got stabbed, and proceeds to beat him up, with the anime removing them pouring a drink on Koichi's head while he's down. After not having the best day, Koichi heads home and decides tonight he will put on his special homemade suit and go out to use his quirk in order to clear his head and forget about the law. The anime adds in Koichi pulling out an All Might hoodie from a drawer, and in that drawer we see a Silver Age All Might themed hoodie, a Bronze Age All Might themed hoodie, and the Golden Age All Might themed hoodie that Koichi takes out and puts on. Koichi's suit is of course mainly just an All Might themed hoodie, as just like Deku, he is a huge fan of All Might and collects All Might themed hoodies. Koichi's costume design, despite being All Might themed, is also meant to be a nod to Deku's costume, as they both have the All Might tufts of hair integrated into their hero suits. Koichi's first act of the night returns a phone back to a woman who accidentally dropped it, helps Deku's mom Inko in a cameo appearance by giving her directions, which her design is actually really different from the manga, as she is skinny in the anime compared to her manga counterpart. And overall, Koichi does a lot of nice things for people and his community. He's also known by many in town, meaning that this isn't Koichi's first time out in town doing this. Koichi, fulfilled from doing good, becomes thirsty and Popstep offers him a drink. Turns out Popstep had been tailing him that day and knows about him and his nice guy persona, even though she mistakenly calls him the cockroach guy. Koichi corrects her as he goes by nice guy, and the two go at it a bit. As Pop is about to slap Koichi, she accidentally hits Soga, who was standing right behind her. This being slightly different, as in the manga, Pop runs off yelling at Koichi, bumping into Soga. They end up pinning Pop against the wall, harassing her, noting that she's a high schooler famous for flashing her butt on the internet, and they should strip her down and post her online. Koichi tries to tell the guys to stop, but Soga glares at Koichi, scaring him, causing Koichi to hesitate from helping Pop, which this moment heavily mirrors Bakugo glaring at Deku, causing him to hesitate in standing up for himself. Now, before everyone shits on Koichi for not immediately turning into All Might and saving Pop, Instantly, this entire moment is meant to parallel Deku's hesitation and guilt when Bakugo was being taken over by the sludge villain, as just like Deku, once Koichi sees the look in Pop's eyes saying "save me," is when Koichi decides to stand on business, or so he thinks. Just like Koichi had told Pop Step earlier, he doesn't handle violence well, so when he actually tries to stop Soga, he fails miserably. Here the anime removes the scene of Koichi imagining succeeding in his plan to take down Soga before attempting his plan and failing. Soga slices the side of Koichi's face and recognizes Koichi, telling Koichi that they are going to crush him and the store he works at, then they will show the world Pop's body after they assault her. From the rooftop looking down, a man smiles after seeing Koichi's actions, and I absolutely love how they turned this moment into comic panels. It was a really nice touch. Back in the alley, Koichi tells Soga that he's going too far, and Soga tells Koichi that this is all happening because of him. Soga's crew keeps Pop quiet, telling her that if she's going to call for someone, that she better call for All Might. As Soga walks over to Koichi ready to stab him, Koichi narrates how All Might isn't always on call, and despite the big trouble him and Pop are in, All Might isn't going to just drop out of the sky to help. Once again, the anime removes most of Koichi's inner dialogue, as besides the All Might stuff, he says how in times of disaster and villain rampages, pro heroes always show up to save the day, but life's troubles aren't limited to the big stuff. There's everyday violence lurking, common malice waiting for a trigger. Sometimes even petty street thugs can kill, which really put an emphasis on how hero society really can be and just how terrifying of a situation him and Pop were actually in. Before Soga can stab Koichi, the man on the roof comes flying down and crashes into a pile of trash. As he gets up, he tells the thugs that All Might isn't coming and states, "But I'm here," using All Might's iconic catchphrase. This confuses Soga as the man walking towards him ends up talking to himself about how piles of trash make for good cushion to reduce the risk of spinal injury and concussions. Then all of a sudden the man punches Soga across the face, shocking the others, and the man introduces himself as the janitor of the Fist, Knuckle Duster, and his job is to take out trash like them. He proceeds to knock out the first thug, checking his tongue, and sees no changes in color since he's trying to see if any of them are on drugs. After him, he moves on to the bigger thug and knocks him out cold, also seeing no change in color of his tongue either. Knuckle Duster then asks Koichi for help, that he's looking for an assistant, and Koichi seems to have promise. If he helps him, Knuckle Duster states that he will make him into a hero. Koichi says he isn't interested and tries to leave, but Knuckle Duster calls him out on his lie. How can Koichi expect him to believe that he isn't interested in hero work when he clearly respects All Might and made a hobby of doing good deeds in his town? Koichi claims that he wants to, but with his goofy quirk, he doesn't have what it takes to go pro. Knuckle Duster states, "Why not? Strong quirks, the stuff to go pro, none of that has anything to do with true justice." In that moment, when it's clear what's gotta be done, do you take action or not? All you need to be a hero is the right answer to that question. Hearing this, Koichi realizes that Knuckle Duster doesn't have a hero license, but they are interrupted by Pop Step screaming as Soga gets his hands on her. Soga rages, claiming that Knuckle Duster doesn't know a thing about justice. Knuckle Duster walks towards him, ready to fight despite Soga having Pop as a hostage. Soga in a rage states that his spikes are going to ruin Pop's face, and Koichi remembers what Knuckle Duster said about taking action in the moment, and his body moves on its own as he tackles Soga to the ground. Koichi once again mirroring Deku's actions when saving Bakugo and proving that he has what it takes to be a hero. Knuckle Duster smiles seeing Koichi embody that heroic spirit, and Pop bounces away while Knuckle Duster praises Koichi and punches Soga, sending him flying into a pile of trash. After checking Soga, Knuckle Duster notes that none of the thugs were on this new drug. Knuckle Duster then stands facing Koichi and tells him that starting today, he's going to teach him what it takes to do hero work and how good it feels to beat up villains. And Koichi narrates how in the moment he wasn't thinking about thanking Knuckle Duster for saving him, but that he was going to be even more trouble, and Koichi flat out refuses Knuckle Duster's offer. Now, this moment of Knuckle Duster telling Koichi that he can be a hero is a direct reference to All Might telling telling Deku that he can become a hero too, despite being quirkless, with the twist on that iconic moment being that Koichi refuses Knuckle Duster's offer while Deku accepts becoming the next user of One For All. Despite the rejection, they end up back in Koichi's apartment and they become acquainted with each other as Knuckle Duster goes through his stuff figuring out Koichi's name. Knuckle Duster plots on Koichi's beer, and in the back alley we see Soga and the others walking in pain from the beating. A man with a scar across his face offers the three thugs this new drug. The man offering the drug takes on a different appearance in the manga as he is shown to be a businessman with the drugs in a briefcase, which we actually do see later in the episode. Back in Koichi's apartment, Knuckle Duster explains that he's on the hunt for a drug that's making the rounds in the city, that drug being called Trigger. The drug weakens the user's ability to reason and boosts their quirk, turning ordinary people into instant villains. At the rate it's going, villains will be popping up everywhere. As he explains this, we see Soga and his crew taking the drug, with the anime removing Soga being offered the drug and adding in Soga already taking the drug. Koichi wonders if the best option would be to just let the heroes and the police handle the problem, but Knuckle Duster makes a point that trigger-induced villains suddenly emerge from the crowd, meaning that it can be anyone at any time, so the police and pro heroes will always be a step behind. The anime here adding in Soga and the others terrorizing civilians in their trigger-induced state. Knuckle Duster continues saying that's where him and Koichi will come in. Koichi and Knuckle Duster will stop anyone suspicious and check their tongues, as the side effect of using Trigger turns their tongues dark. Knuckle Duster will beat the information out of those with dark tongues to find their dealer and put an end to the whole drug trade. Knuckle Duster claims that he will beat anyone suspicious, which worries Koichi, and we jump to the next day where Koichi is trying to stop Knuckle Duster from doing just that. Pop Step shows up and Koichi breaks everything down to her. She asks Koichi why is he even helping Knuckle Duster with all of this, and Koichi pauses and takes a sip of his drink. He then says if he doesn't watch Knuckle Duster, he's just going to punch everyone who walks by. Pop Step rightfully calls out Knuckle Duster's approach as being way too random, and they should use their heads since someone is definitely taking pictures of villains who just pop up in town. They can easily narrow their approach by using the internet and ask questions from there. Knuckle Duster then calls out a man with a briefcase telling him to stick out his tongue. Koichi tries to stop him and accidentally bumps the man's briefcase to the ground as action figures of All Might, Endeavor, and 13 fall out. The man explains he works for a toy company and Knuckle Duster is ready to beat him up to find out more information. But before he can do anything, a certain binding cloth wraps around his arm, stopping him. The hero wonders if Knuckle Duster is an instant villain he's been hearing about, and the episode ends with Knuckle Duster recognizing the hero as Eraserhead, the future teacher of Class 1A. Now, this episode was amazing. Despite my gripes with certain things being removed, like Koichi's infatuation with heroes and him immediately talking down on himself, on top of the episode just being a little bit too fast-paced for me. Regardless, everything fit in quite well. The animation went beyond my expectations, and overall I can't wait to see the next episode. My Hero Academia is back. So let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on the first episode of My Hero Academia Vigilantes. With that said, be sure to Detroit smash that like button, and if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to subscribe to the Kitaroki channel with notifications on so that you don't miss any My Hero Academia Vigilantes content, and I'll see you all in the next one.